What is a flower? Describe the parts of a typical angiosperm flower. So students, we have learned that flower is a reproductive structure of a plant. So in angiosperms, they are called as flowering plants. So these angiosperm plants, they have got flower, which is the reproductive organ. In angiosperm, sexual reproduction takes place through the flower. A typical flower. A flower is also called as modified stem. So the stem is modified into the floral parts which contains 4 whorls, that is calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. So here these are the 4 parts: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. So these are the 4 parts of the flower. So these parts arises from the modified stem. Togetherly, the arrangement of these 4 whorls in a flower. And let us study about these structures in detail. Before that, an androecium and gynoecium in a flower, even though it has got 4 parts, sepals, petals, androecium and gynoecium, the reproductive organs are androecium and gynoecium. They represent the male and the female reproductive organ. Androecium is the male reproductive organ. So this part, this is the androecium, it is the male reproductive organ, and the gynoecium is the female reproductive organ. So gynoecium is the female reproductive organ, androecium is the male reproductive organ. Now suppose if a flower has got both androecium and gynoecium, they are called bisexual flowers. So bi means both androecium and gynoecium are present together. So such flowers are called bisexual. And unisexual, if any of these structures are present, either gynoecium or androecium, so such flowers are called unisexual flowers. And apart from this, the accessory structures like corolla and calyx, if all the 4 whorls are present, corolla, calyx, androecium, gynoecium, we call it as a complete flower. If any one of this is absent, it is an incomplete flower. In some plants, corolla and calyx, they are present separately. We can distinguish them. In some flowers, they are present together and they resemble one another. We cannot distinguish corolla and calyx. So at that condition, we call them as perianth, where we cannot differentiate and they are fused together. So calyx and corolla, if they are fused together, we call it as perianth. So let's learn the functions of each: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Coming to the first one, calyx, it is the outermost whorl. So here we can see in a flower, calyx is the outermost whorl. It is also called as sepals. So the word calyx and sepals are the same. They are the outermost whorl. Generally, they are green in color. So here we can see it is green in color and it looks like a leaf. So it appears like a leaf. They are green in color, leaf-like structures, and its main function is protection. It covers and protects the flower during the bud stage. So during the bud stage, we can see the entire bud would be covered by the sepals. So they are generally green and their main function is protection. Now suppose if the sepals, there will be more than one sepal. So it can be 5, it can be 3, it can be 4. Now if these sepals are free, we call them as polysepalous, and if they are fused, we call them as gamosepalous. Poly means there are many and they are free. So polysepalous. There are many and if they are fused, we call them as gamosepalous. So calyx is the outermost whorl. It is also called as sepals. They are green in color. They are leaf-like structures. They protect the flower during the bud stage, and the arrangement polysepalous when they are free, gamosepalous when the sepals are fused. So let us learn the next one, corolla. So corolla it is also called petals. So here we can see these are corolla. They're also called as petals. Now they are present inside the calyx. So the outermost whorl was calyx, and inside the calyx we can see corolla. It is the second layer of the flower. These corolla are generally colorful, and we also represent them as petals. So we can see the colors in rows. The petals are of different colors. It can be red, pink, orange. So all these colorful structures, petals, are called corolla, and their main function in a flower is they attract insects for pollination. So its main function in reproduction is attracting the insects for pollinations. So here also the petals will be either in multiples of 5, 3 or 4. So when the petals are more and if they are free, it is called polypetalous, and when the petals are more and if it is fused, it is called gamopetalous. So gamopetalous when it is fused, polypetalous when it is free. So corolla, its another name is petals. They are colorful. They help in attracting insects for pollination, and they are present in the second layer. So outermost layer is calyx, and inside the calyx we can find corolla. So far we learnt about sepals and petals. Now let us learn the next whorl, that is androecium. So here this is the androecium. The whole structure, this whole structure is androecium. So androecium, they're also called as stamens, and it is the male reproductive part of the flower. So till now we learnt about petals and sepals. They are the accessory structures. They do not directly take part in reproduction. But androecium, male reproductive part of a flower, it consists of two parts, filament and an anther. So the stalk-like structure is filament, and upon that the tip is the anther. Anther has got two lobes. So they are called bilobed anther. Anther is a site where meiosis takes place and they produce pollen. Pollens are the structure which carries the male gamete. So androecium produces the male gametes in the anther. So anther produces pollen, and the pollen carries the male gamete. So generally androecium, they are also called as stamen. It has got two parts, a stalk-like structure called filament and a bilobed structure which produces pollen. Now this bilobed structure is called anther. So it's one of the important part in the flower. The next one is the gynoecium. So gynoecium represents the female reproductive part of the flower. So this whole structure is gynoecium. It is also called carpel. It includes three parts. The tip is called stigma, the stalk-like structure is called style, and the base swollen structure is called ovary. And inside the ovary there is a ovule. So mainly gynoecium consists of three parts, that is stigma, style and the ovary. So ovary is connected by long tube called style. At the end of the style there is a sticky like substance called stigma. Now inside the ovary many ovules will be present. So this is the ovule. So inside the ovary ovules will be present. So these are the parts of the flowers. So a flower is a reproductive organ in a flowering plant. It has got four whorls: androecium, gynoecium, calyx and corolla. So flower is a modified shoot. The sepals are the outermost whorl. They are also called as calyx. They provide protection. They are green in color. Petals are colorful structures. They are also called corolla, and their main function is to attract the insects. Stamens are also called androecium. They are the male reproductive organs of the flower. It has got two parts, anther and filament. And inside the anther, pollen grains are produced by the process of meiosis. And these pollen grains carries the male gamete. And the last part is the Gynoecium. Gynoecium consists of 3 parts: stigma, style and ovary, and inside the ovary, ovules are present. So, the gynoecium is also called as carpel. So, these are the different parts of an angiosperm flower.